Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing something that I don't think I have done before, and that is one of those, if you like this book, you should read this book. And I have 5 books / series that I'm going to mention in this video. They're all a little bit different. I haven't really themed this in any way. And the way that I'm going to talk about them is that I'm going to give you some just key points as to why they remind me of each other. They may not be perfect matches, they might be different, there might be some significant differences in them, but there's something in them that just reminds me of the other book. And of course, these, if you like this, read this, can work in reverse. So whatever book I say first doesn't necessarily mean that that book is the better book or anything like that. It's simply that you could literally switch the names of these books and it would be the same recommendation. So we're actually going to start off with one of my favorite young adult contemporary romances, and that is Starry Eyes by Jen Bennett. And I think that if you like this book, then you would also like Something Wild and Wonderful by Nita Kelly. Anita Kelly's book is an adult contemporary queer romance story. They're both fantastic. Starry Eyes I read, a few years back now, and I've read it multiple times since then. The reason I think if you like one of these books, you might like the other. They do feature characters who are out camping and hiking. In Starry Eyes, you have 2 teenagers who were friends in the past but had a falling out and are now stuck together in the middle of the bush, and they decide to continue camping on despite the fact that they have been abandoned by their friend group. And along the way, they have to sort out their relationship, and eventually they realize that there are some deep feelings there for each other. And in Something Wild and Wonderful, we have 2 characters who actually meet on the trail, and their paths just continually cross, and then they end up spending time with one another. And I think the reason that I recommend these together is because they're not the same book. They're not, like, there are very significant differences in these books, but they give the same feeling of being alone together in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by beautiful nature, and figuring out a relationship and figuring out where you fit in that relationship. Obviously, one is queer and has quite a diverse range of representation in the book, which is great. The other is less diverse in that way, but the feelings of the setting and the place and the forced proximity are the same, and I enjoy that a lot in books. Because I am not a nature person, this would not appeal to me, and I will not find a partner while hiking anywhere, but apparently reading it is a thing that I like. Okay, and the next 2 are again for very similar themes. There is, if you like In a Jam by Kate Canterbury and you haven't read Zenny by Rebecca Weatherspoon, I think you should possibly read the other. Or if you have read Zenny and you haven't read In a Jam, I think you should read that, because these books feature very similar tropes. They both have a marriage of convenience due to a will left behind by a loved one that requires them to marry in order to get an inheritance. The heroes for both work on farms and are just the most wonderful heroes. The female characters are also just utter delights. And it's been a while since I read Zenny, but the whole time I was reading In a Jam, I'm like, it reminds me so much of this. It's not the same. There are different beats that are hit, so it's not a direct copy of it, but I got the same sort of feelings from the book. And there are things that Zenny does that don't happen in a Jam, and there are things that happen in a Jam that don't happen in Zenny. Like the hero in a Jam is the guardian of a 5-year-old precocious little girl who is adorable, and we don't have that in Zenny, but they just have that awesome small town community, found family element. The idea of the marriage of convenience in a contemporary setting, which sounds ridiculous, but for the context of the story, just works, and I really enjoy them both. The next one, I'm going back to my hockey books, and I'm going to say, and I know I've talked about this before in other videos when I've talked about these books individually, but if you like the rest of the story by Tal Bauer, I think you might like Rookie Mistake by L.A. Witt and Anna Szabo. Now, one is much shorter than the other, but they both deal with themes of survivorship in sports, and they both feature queer couples in sports. They both deal with quite heavy topics. They both feature things that at times have made me tear up, and I think the rest of the story probably has a slightly more hopeful spin on things initially, because there are just some absolutely sunshiny characters in the rest of the story. Whereas Rookie Mistake, I was going to say it's slow burn, but the characters actually get together a lot sooner than the characters do in the rest of the story. But it feels like the way that the relationship builds is a little bit different to the way the relationship in the rest of the story builds. They both feature a lot of hockey. They both feature organizations looking at change and looking at how you manage toxic behavior in a workplace. And as I said, you have the spotlight of sports and queer men in sports and the impact that that has on people. And I just really appreciated both books. and saw similar threads through them. The next one, and I'm sure people have said this one before, so there is The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. If you like this, I think you will like All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata, purely because these are both small town romances. All Roads Lead Here does feature characters that are a little bit more mature than The Simple Wild, I think, just at least consistently across the board. So in The Simple Wild, you have a heroine who is visiting Alaska to see her father, who I think is unwell, and it's basically her last chance. And when she gets there, she meets a gruff pilot, and the pilot is basically her father's 2IC. And the two of them just do not get along initially. He thinks she's spoiled and has never come to visit her father, etc. It doesn't understand the history between the family. In All Roads Lead Here, the heroine is escaping a toxic relationship and ends up renting a B&B apartment above a garage that belongs to the hero of the book, only he didn't rent it out, his son did, and so it's a complicated mess. And she believes that Rhodes doesn't like her because of that, but it's complicated. So slightly different dynamics in terms of the characters, but there is this forced proximity in a small town where the heroine is trying to figure out a little bit about herself with heroes who are a little bit gruff and who take a little bit to get to know, but then when they fall hard and they're great. We enjoyed them. So I think they're very similar in that way. The last recommendation is not so much a single book recommendation as it is an author/series recommendation. And this one is going to be the weirdest one on this list because on the surface, these do not marry up whatsoever. I think if you like Only James's Necessary Evil series, which is queer romantic suspense stories with brothers who are serial killers who hunt down bad guys and kill them, you might like Eden Finley and Saxon James's Puck Boy series. And I say that's weird because this is queer contemporary hockey romance series. The reason that I say that, so like they're completely opposite, but I think the reason you might like them is actually the writing style and the way that these authors actually write their characters. Because the Necessary Evil series, despite the fact that it is about these characters who kill people quite regularly, and it can get quite dark, it's actually about the found family element, and there is actually very little angst between the romantic partnerships in this series. And the same thing is true in the Puck Boy series. The characters are just wild and they do the most outlandish things, but it is about the found family, it is about the friendships, and it is about the relationships that they have. And I think if you distill down why I liked both series, it's that element of that found family and that friendship, that core friendship group that just get along and will do anything for each other. So one group will kill to protect each other, the other will defend each other to the end. And I enjoy them both. And I think the writing style and the pacing and some of the humor is very similar. So yes, those are some of my, if you like this, you might like this recommendations. I don't think I'm particularly good at doing these, but this is what I came up with. So you can let me know if you've read any of the pairings if you think I'm on point, because I don't know. Sometimes my brain just works in very weird ways. The last example being the case in point. All right, thank you very much for watching. In the comments, I would love to know if you have other recommendations that are similar to the books that I mentioned in this video. Feel free to leave them down below. If you want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, feel free to leave a star emoji in the comments. Otherwise, I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.